DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Time to welcome Pablo Mastroeni back to the show, RSL head coach. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
PK just spent the previous commercial break telling me how much better St. George is because it cools down to 70 and Phoenix cools down to 98. So just in case you were wondering.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd say cools down.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like that at all.
It's not. My point was you can get out in the mornings
Yes.
and play some golf because it's not as blazing hot because it does get cooler in the overnight, so it takes a little longer to warm up than by 8:39 in the desert. It's already warm.
It's actually impossible to golf in the summertime in Arizona. I mean, right? They have the carts, they have ice, they have those fans on, they have the towels, they have everything to get people out there. It's insane.
Yeah, they have emergency personnel standing by too.
Ice baths at every tee.
It's funny.
No time for golf now, Pablo, because you got a game with Atlas Thursday night. It's your first game in the League's Cup because you had the bye through the first round of action there in group play. When you play a team from Mexico, how much do you know? I mean, there are players moving back and forth. The games are on TV, so maybe you've had a chance to collect a lot of video and watch and play. How much do you know, and how much of this is we're just going to focus on us? We really don't know these guys.
Yeah, it's more the latter. We're going to focus more on us. Obviously, I think they have 4 games in their own league, so they just started up the second part of their season. So again, we have those games, but we saw the Houston game, and Houston play a lot like we do. So some really good video, and really the takeaway from that is that they're a very dynamic, moving team. In other words, a lot of teams play positionally. These guys are constantly changing positions on both sides of the ball, and which makes it very difficult. And so then it makes more sense to stay to what we do and play within our principles, so that defensively, if they're attacking and their shape starts to change, we have our principles when we defend against a 3-back, when we defend 4-back, and they do that pretty fluidly. So we have to be very attentive on both sides of the ball, But again, I think they're number 2 in the Mexican League at the moment in the short run of games that they've had. So they're a really good team. So it'll be a great challenge for us to play both a Mexican opponent and one that's doing really well at the moment.
A few games back, Chicho went out, and I thought that the offense suffered, and obviously he hasn't been playing of late. And I think the offense has been a little bit better than I expected, for whatever that's worth. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think it's a no-brainer when you lose the Golden Boot winner at the moment. You're gonna it's gonna look a little different. He's a big void to fill, both on the field, off the field, and in the locker room. I think his leadership has been amazing this year, and along with scoring goals. So there's always going to be a void. I think in the Colorado game, Andres did a good job filling that, and he continues on. To have a breakthrough season for us. But I think the biggest concern in the last few games has been the way we've been conceding goals. And so that's been an area of focus in these last 11 days in preparation for the Silas game.
What has the problem been? Why so many goals? Because early in the season, defensively, you're lights out. I mean, you're really good, but there has been a run of probably more than half a dozen games where there have been way more goals than you'd prefer to see allowed.
Yeah, I think it's just a collective defensive mindset. Oftentimes you want to point at the goalkeeper or the back line, but what made us really good when we were a good defensive team was everyone working really hard. The guys up front making it predictable for the guys in the middle and the guys in the back. And, I think it's natural, DJ, and in that when people start talking about how good you are from an attacking perspective, right, you got Luna having a great year, Andres, Chicho, Crooks, and these guys are all contributing to the score sheet. It's almost like you're almost waiting for the ball, and you want to make the game more transitional, right? Because you're not coming back to defend the way you were before anyone was talking about you, before you had to really prove yourself. And so I think it's a natural flow of a season, and just dealing with all the praise that's being thrown at the attacking players. And so we had a good reset, I think, these last 10 days. And so it's really as simple as, losing the ball and getting great pressure on the ball immediately so that we can hold our line higher. And then it's just a trickle down effect. When the guys up front aren't dialed in defensively, it's going to trickle down all the way to the goalkeeper. And so, like I said, it's been a big area of focus and one that I hope to see big improvements on Thursday.
In my experience, listening to coaches across all sports in post-game or during regular weekly media availability, they normally have a message that they're trying to send, and sometimes it might even be subliminally, and you've got to be able to understand what they're talking about. And I was getting from you recently about the idea of the teamwork rather than the individual. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's spot on. And I think it's, it alludes to what I said earlier as far as the guys up front, waiting for the ball and not helping out on the defensive side and making sure that we're compact. Again, we're going to be able to score goals because we have good attacking players. But if you're conceding more than you're scoring, then you're losing games. And so then it's just a call to say, we win as a team and we lose as a team. When the team wins, everyone looks great as an individual, right? But when we lose, even the guy that scores goals is like, well, there shouldn't be any pride in being the best player on a bad team. Like that's number one in pro sports, right? Everyone plays to win, and in order to win, everyone's got to do a job that they don't like doing. Right. So in the back, guys putting the guys, demanding that the guys play out of the back. It's tough, but in order for us to, stay true to our game model and the way we want to play, that's what's being asked of you. And the same with the guys up front, which is if you want to win, you got to do all the dirty work defensively as well. And I think that's what made us. That was our X factor, and that is our X factor, and that's who we are. We're a gritty team that has quality players. But what makes us, our advantage is having an extra man with our work and our defending. And the moment we lose that, then we're playing straight up, and then we just become another team. So that's been a big talking point, in the last couple of weeks. And again, it's just for me, and I tell the guys all the time, it's such natural human reaction to when people are singing your praises. It's natural, and we got to fight that, and we got to reset, and we got to be humble in our work to be able to overcome these moments.
You've got depth in some positions, goalkeeper, defensive midfielders for sure. You had it on your back four until you had just a terrible, terrible run of luck there. So that got tested a little. But in those four attacking positions, your playing rotations and your substitution patterns suggest that you really believe in five guys there. And because they've largely stayed on the field, it's looked really good and you've scored a bunch of goals. But there hasn't been depth. You went to the transfer window. You added a couple guys, one of whom I don't think we've seen yet. Can you explain to people what you added there, what that's going to look like, how that's going to play out, and how you think the team benefited from those two additions?
Yeah, so Benji Michel and Lachlan, two players that play in those attacking positions. Again, I think with the year that the front four have been having, consistency has been key. I think in those attacking positions, chemistry has a lot to do with the form that these guys are in. And in order to do that, you have to give them a lot of minutes. And so not trying to fix something that isn't broken, I think is the adage that, we're working under. But Benji Michel is an explosive player. He can play out wide where Andres Gomez plays, or he can play up front as well. And so this game tomorrow, he'll be, more than likely replacing Julio Anderson at some point up front. And so he brings a bit of depth, a bit of physicality, speed, and has scored some goals in this league. And then Lachlan is a young under 23 player who's been playing in Australia, but also had a stint in England. He's got huge aspirations for himself. He wants to play with the Aussie Roos in 2030 is his aim for the world. 2030 World Cup is his aim. And so I think he's it'll be interesting to see how quickly he acclimates to our league. But he's an exciting player. He can find a pass in really tight spaces. He's got a nose for goal, and he scored the most goals that he's ever scored last year. And so I think he's kind of I put him in the same bucket as Andres Gomez when he came to us last year. Is a guy with a lot of potential, and it's just about how quickly he acclimates to our group.
You had a phrase a few weeks back where you said scanning the field, and when you said that, it really painted a picture in my mind of what you were trying to accomplish, and it looks like you were wanting guys to do that, and I view it like a point guard in basketball. A great one actually sees the play developing maybe a second or two before it actually develops. Was that what you were going for?
Yeah, that's a great question, PK. In soccer, the analogy I use with the guys is if you don't scan, then it's like having a flashlight in your hand, right? And the field is dark. So if you're scanning, you're aware of everyone that's on the other side of the field. You're aware of the guys that are up the field behind, so that when you receive the ball, you take a mental picture of what's going to happen next, right? And that's really important on offense because you can make a play as you get the ball. And anytime you see a one-touch pass that goes forward in soccer, it's because the player knows what they're going to do with it before they go. Because again, if they're not scanning and they're facing the ball, then they have no idea what's going on up the field. And so that's it's a fundamental technique that most young players should have in their locker. But it's something that I find myself always coaching at this level as well. And then that's why the best players are players that do that naturally because they have the play picked out. And then defensively, it's really important as well, especially in the middle of the field because there's so many players that you could potentially be marking at any one time. And so you got to get a picture of the players that are behind you, the players are to your right, left, and obviously the players in front of you are easy. But if you have it's almost like a GPS system, and you know where everyone is. But you can only do that if you scan. Unfortunately, we don't have a GPS system that alerts us to any dangers anywhere, right? So it's a technique, and the thing is, it needs to be automated. In other words, it's not something that you can just coach once in a training session and you get it. When I was a player, I realized how important this was. And in the off season, when I'd go on jogs, I would sit there and I'd jog, and then I'd run down the sidewalk and look to my left and just name the color of the car that was coming up. And then I go to the other side of the street to work the other side. And so you're constantly turning your neck. And what we say in soccer is if you scan every 5 seconds, you have a great idea of where you are in relationship to your teammates and your opponents.
Kyle Beckerman went to the World Cup for a lot of reasons. But if I had to pick one memory that I have from him attacking, not screaming at referees or defending and crushing guys, but to your point, the ball would go to the right back on the far sideline from the TV cameras and from your bench, and they would play the ball to him, and apparently it'd be a blind ball, but if you watched a couple seconds before, he's scanning so he would know, he would play a ball up the field pretty much into your lap, if not that far, depending on how deep they were, maybe to midfield. And it seemed to routinely catch the defense off guard because you assume he's going to play it up the field or he's going to play, to somebody right next to him. And he's playing it up the field 20, 30, 40 yards and taking it from kind of the right channel all the way to the left sideline. And it seems like that just scrambles defenses all the time.
You're spot on. Kyle was a master of that. And the other part that you didn't mention what it does and how it affects the defense as well, because I think that's just as important, is when you get the ball off that right back and you play one first touch, obviously the player that's going to press him and try to defend him is kind of shocked by it. So the next time that same play develops, he's going to be over-correcting his run to try to block the first-time pass, and now Kyle does that spin move and then just dribbles out of it because he fakes the long one, and now he uses what he just, the one-touch pass to now spin out, and now he finds the weak side. So you're constantly – there's so many games going on in the game of soccer, both individually and as a collective. But as a midfielder, having that one touch in your arsenal opens up your dribble. And so it's like boxing. You throw the jab to land the right. And so you're constantly playing with the guy that's marking you in order to find space for yourself. And when the spaces are cagey, those one-touch passes back them up. So, yeah, no, that's a great example. Kyle was a master of it.
I was trying to prop up DJ, and I told him when Diego Luna does something impressive, he can just scream, "That was total lunacy." Do you like it?
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
He's good at the nickname thing. We've got our producer, our substitute producer, Christian, is now Chicho. And PK and Jake were both gone last week, and I was just calling him Chicho on the air. And he totally reacts to it. He literally thinks Chicho is named. So lunacy could fall in line right behind Chicho.
I love that. Yeah.
We'll run it past Diego, see if he likes it.
Yeah, I might say that today actually in training because I'm sure in the small-sided game he's going to do something crazy. So I'll say that's lunacy.
There you go.
I like it. Let us know how that goes. We want to know how well that goes over. There will be follow-up questions. We will remember this.
I'll do that.
All right. Thanks, Pablo. Go look at
right,
Phoenix temperatures and be grateful that you're not there and you're here.
Yeah, I am blessed.
Right? Thanks, Pablo.
Take care, guys.
Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach, joining us right here on The Zone for a little lunacy. DJ and PK, it all begins today for the BYU football team. More of that ahead, and PK with Connor Pay, the Cougar center, coming up at 9 o'clock, right here on The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Ike Larson, safety for the Utah State Aggies.
I'm so impressed you stayed committed when Blake Anderson was still in place and came out of season and going into spring, and then had an opportunity to go in the portal, and you stayed committed to this staff as it remains. What has kept you in place through this?
I think just the trust and, the family that I built with Utah State and the new coaches. Coach Johnny, for example, he's been here, 4-6 months, and, our relationship is already great. Me and Coach A's relationship was like none other. I mean, I'll go over to his house if he needed anything, and he'll come to my house if he needed anything. So, it's hard, but I think that's what helps me at the end of the day is, having coaches that trust me and I trust them, that I know will put me out there when the game's on the line.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, and it's sponsored by Hercules Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
BYU camp opening today. What are your concerns? That's the question of the morning, what we've been talking about. South End Zone for Life at Open Source Coug says, Utah fans, that's my concern. He's worried about the Ute fans.
Ute fans? They're a harmless, well-intended bunch.
Unless you ask the wrong question.
Yeah, and I'm still shocked that you asked Rising, what the freak he's still doing in college for?
Not exactly what I asked him, but
It was phrasing that exact way.
You're lying.
That was the intent that they took it.
That is how they took it.
Right. I speak for Ute fans.
But it is not the question. Because you can actually listen to it for yourself.
But that's the way they took it. You can't determine how people take your actions in whichever form they're manifest. I mean, I was shocked when you asked that question.
You were not. You were shocked when you found out about the blowback.
I consider tendering my resignation.
Ha!
Or, more importantly, extending my vacation.
Sitting on the beach in front of your multi-million-dollar homes.
That I can never get.
Yeah, right? Did you tell that story about the security guards on the air or off the air?
I don't know.
Rich people don't want you walking up the street, and in California, you can, but they stand there dressed like cops.
Right.
Thanks for coming. And then they point a different direction away from the street and the house of whoever hired them.
Yeah, there was a sidewalk, and they had multiple signs. Please stay on the sidewalk, veer to the left. And then there was a security guy standing there. Hey, did you have a good day? Trying to be all friendly. And I thought, just a mess.
You want to walk up the street. He doesn't want you to walk up.
I thought about it. And what are you going to do to me?
He can't do anything.
Right.
He can't. The streets are public property. But they don't want people cutting through their street to the beach.
But I had to be somewhere.
Didn't have time to mess around with him.
No, I had to get going, and I had rented a board, and I had to return it. Jack's Surf Shop, which is a well-known brand there. They have it in multiple locations. And then as I returned the board, they had a bunch of clothing that was 50% off. So consequently, the old lady bought a bunch of clothing that we really didn't need, but it was 50% off. Hoodies and sweatshirts and whatnot. So in the coming months,
I'm going to see some of those, huh?
It doesn't seem like the temperature's ever going to break, but when it does, yes, I will wear that and wear that stuff. I got a bunch of Jack's Surfboard Shop, and they got a bunch of cool stuff there for sure. So, yeah, but that's how they didn't want the common man. And my friends had told us that there'll be security to direct you
away from the $50 million mansion.
Yeah, there were some beautiful homes. It was a beautiful beach, man, called Strands Beach, I think it's called, and it was top of the line for sure. And people were jammed in there because it wasn't a big beach. And then we got there at like 10 o'clock in the morning because I don't have much time, so I'm going to use all the time that I got, right? And so we were there a good 6 hours. I know some people can't stay there, but I can do that easily.
Easily.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good day to me.
Yeah. And this group of, I'd say, late 20s, early 30s people, probably 15 of them, they came in like right next to us. And then
Beach etiquette. Don't do that.
Well, and then they started doing a choreographed dance.
They're kicking sand all over the place.
Not so much that, but they were doing. It was just like it was impeding upon my
peace and quiet on the beach.
Yeah. So I went in the middle of them. I said, "Back off!"
Nice.
No, I actually moved more to the right.
Got away from
They
them.
were practicing some choreographed dance routine. Go do it in the parking lot.
Beach etiquette. How close can you be? It depends how crowded the beach is.
It was pretty crowded. So
well, once you get there and it's crowded, it's not so much about the distance. When you sit down, split the difference between two groups. You know, if the two groups are 10 yards apart, well, go in the middle of it. Don't go right next to somebody.
But times were good, that's for sure. And then I come home, and I got home Monday night, and I knew Kyle was speaking that day and tried to catch up on that. And I saw your outrageous question, which I didn't think was outrageous, but apparently some people did. And now we move on to BYU and their camp starting. And it's a little bit of a perfunctory blah, blah, blah that we all go through. I mean, they're not going to say anything, I don't think, today that's going to be, wow. Yeah, it's all going to be developing. Now, for them, they've got to name a quarterback, and I don't know that they're going to name it or they play. It seems like everybody's got to play the cat and mouse game today, just like everything at the college level. You can't see anything. But it's funny because the pros, they're wide open.
They're wide open, yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll have like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fans wherever they are. They used to go off different places, and they don't tend to do that. They've built expensive facilities now, so they tend to do them right there at the expensive facility where they've got all their medical stuff, so it makes sense.
Yeah, they stay in town. And they're wide open. Like
I saw something on social media about, and the Chiefs like throwing a 30-yard touchdown pass, and the fans are just going nuts. And whatever media member it was is like, the Chiefs win Super Bowls and stuff's wide open. Why are these college coaches so secretive? What kind of advantage are they getting?
I know.
It's like Andy Reid. He's had his whole career. He's done it all. He can do more if he wants. He can walk away if he wants. But maybe he wants to stick around, win another Super Bowl or two, go for the three-peat. Great. Nobody's done that. And he's opening it.
I know where Andy Reid's California house is. Literally, I know where it is now. Because my friend that I spent some time with showed me.
You gonna go knock on the door one day like you did with Norm Chow?
I am not.
That's what I thought.
I knew Norm Chow.
Yeah, there's a difference.
I don't know Andy Reid. I know of him.
Right.
But I don't know.
But he's been off in Green Bay and Philadelphia and Kansas City, not bouncing around Salt Lake.
Right. He'd probably say, please get off my porch. Whereas Norm welcomed me into his home. I knew him. I knew him for many years. There's a big difference there. But yeah, the colleges have really shut it down. What's BYU do, Yak? They just do the last 15 minutes or so now?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So you get to see something at least.
Utah's at zero.
Zippo.
They've cut
Nothing.
and it literally says there will be absolutely no practice viewing in their release.
Yeah. Wow. We're not talking about the public. We're talking about a bunch of slobs in media who are normally up there just yakking away and barely paying attention anyway. Which is, it's not true. I actually thought that they should have access during the training camp. Because once the season starts, well, you see the games. But we still have a month to go before games, and the fans can get some insight by the media going and be able to tell you, particularly if you trust people and they're not, even if you're a fan of the team, I still think you can be somewhat objective in what you see, but they're not doing any yet. Utah's zero, I guess. And my wife was asking me about that, and I said I think it corresponds with the fact that they don't have need for fans to come to their games. They're coming to the games, so they feel like they're dealing from a position of strength.
And I get that, but they want to raise more NIL money. So you want to create more excitement. People give money to people they know. So to cut down on the interviews and the excitement that comes with everybody talking about whatever's happened at practice. I mean, the NFL makes the most money, and they never walk away from an opportunity to stay front and center. They got quarterbacks and head coaches doing off-season interviews.
But
and
are
other
those
leagues shut it down.
Fans that give money, can't they go?
The fan who is already giving money, yeah, if Spence Eccles wants to go, he can walk around.
I've seen him drive right up.
I know you have.
And then walk
And his
right.
name's on the stadium, so that's the extreme example. So, yes, but how do you get people to give the first time? How do you draw them in? And I think the NFL, for all their success, is always trying to draw in more fans.
Yeah, but it's like the Jazz. Are they really after Joe Fan, or are they after the corporation to buy their tickets?
Corporation's going to buy their tickets, but it's Joe Fan who's going to buy their merchandise, and they want it all. I get your point. They're only walking away from a little bit of money. My point is the NFL never walks away from money. And when you talk to people in these organizations, college or pro, most of them want more money. Ryan Smith wants more money.
He does?
Yes.
Why?
So he can spend it and build more stuff. He is not content with where things are. I don't know if you've noticed that. He wants to move it forward.
What's left to build, dear?
Well, apparently a couple blocks downtown, and after that, I don't know.
They're going to do that.
Right. And after that, I don't know, but there'll be something.
Happen.
There'll be something. He's not sitting still.
No?
No.
Don't you have to smell the roses at some point?
Some people do. Some people don't. Some people keep grinding.
I'm ready to smell. I guess it's different philosophies there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, I think we see that. I think we see that in the leagues. Well, the NFL does think about it, but the others clearly don't.
But
They're not worried about
their
it.
pitch otherwise.
Okay.
They don't think that this is detracting. They think that
they do. I agree with that. That is what they think. I don't think that's the way it works, and I think the Jazz will always be chasing the Lakers. The Lakers are in LA. They're always going to have more money.
I'm talking about the colleges.
And in the college level, Utah's always going to be chasing Ohio State. So how close can you get to them? How much more NIL can you get to get one more player? It never ends. I mean,
right, it doesn't never end.
Right.
But I don't think that they think
it never ends. But they stop.
They don't think that allowing media slobs to stand around for 90 minutes is going to make a difference.
Yep, I get that. And they don't think off-season press availability is going to make a difference. But the NFL does, and the NFL makes more money. So I guess when in doubt, default to what the NFL does.
But they don't.
I know. And I find that ridiculous. But you're right, they don't. I agree. They do not.
Is it the product, though, or is there the availability?
I think it's both. I mean, the product has to be good. You can do availability if nobody likes the product, so what? I mean, you got to have both.
I'm trying to put myself in their stand, but why did the U of U just literally cut off everything? Why did Tiger date Swedish models?
Because they can.
Right.
Because he could.
Right. So they don't need it. And it used to be that they talked every day.
Now they talk on Mondays and Tuesdays during camp, and Kyle will only talk 3 times. 1 down, 2 to go.
That's it?
Yep.
3 times?
3 times. 1 down, 2 to go.
He'll only talk 3 times.
Yep.
Talk more than that.
Well, that's what they put out in the release.
Was that the entirety of the release or just to that point in the release?
I think it was the entirety. Yak, how did you take it? You read it. He'll talk 3 times before his weekly. Once they get to game week, then he goes into game mode.
On Monday.
But I think between now and game mode and that Monday presser when he starts those, I think he'll talk 3 times.
And I'm expecting the grand total of it to last 15 minutes.
Tops. Yeah, he was about 4.5 this time.
You mean
like the time
collective.
between those 3 interview sessions? They're cutting it off fast.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't get as to why the last question, and I didn't even get a first question.
I know.
And I'm the most important media guy there.
There it is.
But at the same time, for Utah's perspective, I don't really have a problem with that. Because they don't have any questions. Or they have questions, but they have few questions. And then he does talk on the Mondays preceding the game. He does give an extensive interview. 20 minutes is plenty.
I really like those. And he says, I think he says a lot of stuff. If he gets good questions, he gives really good answers.
Right. And then after the game, he goes.
You don't need a question.
Right.
We're actually talking about that, standing around waiting for somebody. And they're talking about the 3 times and all that. It's like his post-game press conferences, he doesn't need a question.
No.
He sits down, he talks about the key plays, he talks about the momentum swings, he talks about the big moments, and he talks about the players who the fans are talking about as they're walking out to the car. So-and-so had a big game.
Right, I think his review of the
touchdowns.
game when he sits down is as good as anybody's I've ever seen.
Pretty all-encompassing.
Because he just goes, and if they stink, he's not sugarcoating it.
Right.
So he'll just...
We got to get way better in the throw game. We've heard that.
And
he doesn't say, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. And he's like, we've got to get a lot better.
Right. So he's very honest in his post-game assessments. I would encourage fans to listen to that deal because that's...
And you can learn a lot of football. He'll really get into it.
Yeah.
And the same with his Monday press conferences.
But I also think it's just, they're doing it, so we'll do it.
It's definitely
and then
going on.
There's been a trickle-down effect.
Yeah.
And then having spoken to some administrators, they feel like that if it were just the traditional media, they would be more open.
Yes.
But there's so many people now that fall under the umbrella of media.
I've been told that right to my face.
And they don't necessarily know. Like, they know for me, if I see a trick play, I know that's unreportable.
Right. You can't do that.
And so they feel like they can't get a handle because there's the media has expanded than it used to just be 3 or 4 guys.
Right.
And, I use that general neutral, just hanging around, and we've been hanging around for years.
3 or 4 people, reporters.
And now there's a whole bunch of people. And I understand that.
And they don't know them all.
Right.
They don't know them all. Even among the new media that expanded, there's people who are regulars, they know pretty well. Mm-hmm. But there's other people who are showing up the first time and they're wild cards. And you just don't know.
Yeah. So
and it's not
I
just
understand that.
It's not just the current management at Utah that thinks that. I mean, that has been going back
I think
previously.
they're right in thinking that.
Yeah, that's going back 10, 15, even, I don't know, when did it start? 15 years ago? 20?
But I think the final analysis is the fans, all they care about is winning. And if you're winning, they don't care about that other stuff. They don't care about getting the daily update on who looked good in practice. Because in short order...
Get to the games.
Yeah.
And then we know who looks good.
Yeah, so it doesn't
really matter. And who cares
matter.
if you're a gamer or not, or a practice player.
Yeah. I think BYU's would be better served because when there's a quarterback competition, that's the big deal. Everybody gets excited about that. Who's going to start for BYU? Who's going to be their starting quarterback? When we get to October, we get to September, really when that second game, I think that's who they plan to be their guy. Because that second game, SMU, a ball club that won 11 games, and they've sold out their season ticket, interest is peaking at a level that they haven't had in a long time for that program. That's a huge game. I don't think Utah has big non-conference games.
I think we assume Utah will be 3-0 again.
BYU does, right off the freaking bat. Yeah, that's a gigantic game.
What has Utah lost since they went to the Pac-12? Is it 3 non-conference games?
They had that one year
Utah State,
when they
BYU, Florida.
When they started your guy.
Oh, San Diego State.
Yeah.
So 4.
Who was your guy again? Went like 18 for 14 in the spring game. What was his name? Was it Brewer?
Charlie Brewer, the legend.
I was thinking of Randy Brewer. That's like a basketball player, isn't it? Like a big guy from Minnesota or something. Yeah. Charlie Brewer, right. I mean, yeah. I felt bad for you.
I don't think you did. You thought it was wildly entertaining.
And you kept, who was a bigger miss by you? Caleb Rep or
I was going to bring
Charlie
up,
Brewer?
is Rep in the mix here?
He has to be. Pretty much has to be. Took somebody at face value, should just let it go. Even the people who recruit him miss on 1 out of 3.
Well, it's a defensive guy who told you. What the crap? Yeah. That's like Bob Gibson when the catcher came out. What do you know about hitting? The only thing you know is you can't do it. Get back behind the plate.
Offensive and defensive guys recruit the other side of the ball all the time. They have areas. You know that.
I know.
Nice try. Nice
yeah,
try.
so they did that 1 and 2 on that.
Yeah, so it's 4 losses in, 14 years?
Yeah.
So, of course, we assume they're going to be 3-0 because that's what they've done 11 times.
Well, yeah, I may think differently schedule-wise, but not this year.
Right.
Yeah, and to their defense, when they scheduled Baylor, you don't know.
Right.
So you can't say.
There've been a lot of games we did know, but they scheduled the Michigan home and home, and the Florida home and home, and the Baylor, and so we don't know all of them.
And ironically, those teams were down. I realize they still lost, but but Florida lost to a great had a good quarterback there, Richardson, who's now with Indianapolis, and then last year they didn't have him, and so they've scheduled these games. And the teams haven't been as good. I think they got some bang for their buck with Michigan because Harbaugh was there and all that stuff. So attention-wise, they got what they were looking for.
Right, but they didn't play them in their 10-win seasons.
No. Who are they playing in Vegas? Miami.
They play Miami.
And hopefully for Miami.
The U versus the U.
Yeah, what's that, in 27?
27.
Yeah, hopefully Miami, that's a good ball game, and away you go.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, The Zone. Coming up next, it's a Win Tickets Wednesday. We got to give away tickets. Stick around.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Andrew Mason, Denver Sports, joining us here on the program.
Zach Wilson, he was the third quarterback up. He had arguably the best throw of the day of any Broncos quarterback, a nice little pass to Greg Dulcich. And then he had the worst throw of the day. He had a play that nearly got picked off. It's just on an overall basis, it just seems like he's probably in need of some kind of longer-term football rehab to kind of get back on track. Maybe Jarrett Stidham, who's in his second year in this scheme, and then Bo Nix, their first-round draft pick. I think there's some distance between those other 2 quarterbacks and Zach Wilson based on what I've seen.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Win Tickets Wednesday right now. Caller 12-801-575-ZONE wins a pair of tickets to see the Australian Pink Floyd show at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 16th. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE.
Why is it always the Australian, not the American or the New Zealand or something?
I think that's just how they branded themselves as a knockoff cover band, I guess.
Right, but you don't have the Louisiana Elvis Presley.
The Memphis Elvis Presley band.
Well, I mean, Pink Floyd's not from Australia. I always found that interesting. A lot of things that I find interesting. You always hear like, oh, I'd like to be a fly on the wall. Well, you want to eavesdrop on the conversation, but then the conversation is over, you're still a fly.
Good point.
You know what I mean?
You might get swatted.
Yeah.
Splatted.
Right. Eventually you will. If you keep buzzing around in people's faces. There's things I don't understand. And that's one of them. Why did they take off from Australia and became this world-renowned Pink Floyd sound-alike? You think somebody else from like Toronto would jump on it or something?
Toronto.
You know what I mean?
Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah. For whatever reason, it's the Australian version of Pink Floyd. It seems like you hear about it every year. They must be really good.
They must be really good. They keep touring, keep selling it out.
Yeah.
People love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Those Beatles sound like bands for a while. There've been a few of them. Stones ever have a sound like band? Somebody ripping off U2 or
there's got to be
Elvis or Michael Jackson, Prince.
I get these things in the mail, the email from Sand Hollow because we've played there and they got your email address right, and then they send them to you, and they have a little natural amphitheater over there, and they have a lot of those bands like the Eagles band or whatever it might be, and I haven't heard Stones. There are many of them, and they're probably really good. Fleetwood Mac, and you could buy tickets to their shows. But I haven't heard the Stones. I don't know.
Those cover bands, they have to they got to pay the main band for using their brand to make money like that?
I would assume.
There's some kind of residual.
Yeah.
Getting a little more cash.
I was pre-med, not pre-law, so I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that question.
You could have been pre-law on a Friday night in Tempe if you needed to be.
Well, no, I went to the higher one. Doc
Kinahan.
Yeah, and some of those bands, I mean, you go to just whatever place. You go to your local establishment, and there's a lot of good talent out there. And some of them, you know, they do it as an aside or whatever, or they try to make it, but they couldn't make it. It's hard to make it. Like I always thought that, man. You come out the Hall of Fame. I thought, man, if you got your song played on the radio, that ought to be Hall of Fame right there. I mean, just to get to that level.
Exciting.
We were riding bikes. We rode bikes from Oceanside all the way down. It's called Moonlight Beach, which is south of Carlsbad. So it's a good long ride, right? And then on the way back, my freaking e-bike breaks, and there were some hills you had to cover. So there's a little bit of a thing there, a little bit of a haul. But I had time, and it was still pretty and fine. I would have preferred a couple of hills. And we're driving. We went down this little side street to get off PCH, and we heard out of this house just a band, and you could hear it, man. It's just blasting. And they were probably in the house practicing. And the guy that I was with, he owns a property management company in the Phoenix area, right? Mm-hmm. And, they do a lot of, he has to go to HOA meetings and whatnot. And he was telling me that one of the complexes or housing areas that they would manage, there was a band out of Tempe that was trying to make it, but they insulated everything, and they had to get approval in the area to do all that, and so they did it, and he was aware of it. And the band was Jimmy Eat World. And they made it big. And they were that band. And good for them, they had that one big hit. And they were from the East Valley there. But I often thought Jimmy Eat World, and that's a lot. Why didn't they start off like Jimmy Eat Country? Or maybe Jimmy Eat Rhode Island. Start small.
Start with a city, a county, a state.
But they went right to the top.
Work your way up to a continent. And then the entire globe.
And you wonder how come some bands make it and others don't.
And how come, to your point about the Hall of Fame, they have the hit. They've done it. But they can't do it the second time or the third time, and they become the one-hit wonder.
Which isn't bad.
I know. It's not like you have no talent. You had a hit, and we all know it, and we like it.
Would you rather have Jimmer Fredette's career or not? He didn't make it big in the NBA, but still.
He made a lot of money professionally. He was a college player of the year.
Yeah.
As someone who played high school basketball at a super mediocre to below average level, yes, I would take it. It'd be a massive upgrade.
Right. That's awesome.
Anybody who played in college and
Cam Rising
was the 10th player at the end of the bench. Well, I played basketball, not football, but I get your point. But, yeah, absolutely.
It looks like Cam Rising is going to have a hard time making it in the NFL. But so what?
2 Rose Bowls.
Yeah.
I mean, the dream play.
Maybe a playoff.
It's 4th and 1, and he gets hit, and he spins around, and all of a sudden he breaks into the free and outruns everybody into the end zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would take all that. I think 99% of us would take to that level because we haven't come anywhere near it.
60-yard touchdown run in the Rose Bowl.
You
Sign
thought
me
you
up.
were mediocre?
Yeah, it was.
I define mediocre.
Which one of us was more mediocre to below average? That moment your song gets played on the radio, when you said that, like if you can get your song played on the radio, I ought to go to the Hall of Fame. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
There's a movie, That Thing You Do, is from the 90s. And it follows a mythical band that lives the dream in the 60s, I think. And maybe it was the 70s, I think it was the 60s, whatever. And they did such a great job. And they follow the band, it's probably 30, 40 minutes in the movie before they get a song on the radio. And when they do, and it plays, that scene is so well done. And it goes to what you were talking about, the excitement, the talent, and to finally get there. And the way they all reacted, it was a really well done scene.
Jim Atkins, the singer and guitarist for Jimmy Eat World, went to Mountain View High. Not your Mountain View High, Max Hall and John Beck's and Todd Heap's Mountain View High.
He's a Toro.
How many Mountain View Highs are there in the United States?
Well, you can't.
Not in Kansas.
Right.
Kansas. But
I
there's
know
Mountain Views.
Idaho has one.
Yes, Idaho, and I think there's multiple Mountain Views in California.
Well, you got to have a mountain that you're viewing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I assume Oregon and Washington we can find them. There's got to be a lot of Mountain View Highs.
The one I went to was originally supposed to be called Rocky Mountain High, but they decided to move away from that due to John Denver.
You guys both went to the University of Kansas. Didn't they have a, what is that? What do they call that
Went
hill?
to NAU and ASU.
For the game last year when BYU went there. And there's they call it the hill or whatever?
The campus is literally built on a hill. You have to walk up it.
There's a real hill in Kansas, and they found it, and they put a school on it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up next, PK with Connor Pay. BYU Center. Stay with us.